The story of this manhwa begins in a majestic palace surrounded by an immense field, where a lady runs alongside our protagonist. "I will wait for you," she expresses before the dream ends. It happened again. The sound of a phone call wakes up Jaesin. Annoyed, he answers, and it's his only friend on the other side. After an annoying conversation, the caller concludes that it's because a friend needs help with their company. After hearing the payment and considering his situation, our protagonist accepts. On the way, Jaesin encounters an old woman who claims to read fortunes, but he refuses due to his lack of belief in superstitions. "What you are looking for will be inside the hole in the root of a tree," she says, but he ignores her and continues on his way. Several hours later, he's tired. He hasn't spoken to anyone except for a girl who offered him a drink. Moments later, the same girl asks for everyone's help, as she has lost a very important USB. Everyone agrees and starts searching. Jaesin notices some marks on the ground that lead him to the hole in the root of a tree. He remembers what the old woman had told him, and indeed, there was the missing object. "Welcome," she happily exclaimed upon seeing it returned. "Ask whatever you want." The protagonist wants to know something about that recurring dream in his nights, but she rejects the request, stating that she needs his name and date of birth for that. Disappointed, he gets up to leave, but the woman refreshes an old memory about his eyes, and he turns back, eager to hear more. "If you want to find that person, stop running away from your destiny," she concludes, and then demands her payment. Back at home, he decides to search for those red glasses with a peculiar shape in his drawer. He hasn't used them since that day. Another call interrupts him, but this time it's for something else. As a thank you for finding the lost USB, the lady has invited him to a meal. At the cafe and during their conversation, the lady apologizes for the earlier call and mentions an art gallery on the second floor for him to explore while she's away. Jaesin goes upstairs with little excitement. Among the many paintings, he comes across an immense work of art that leaves him astonished. That place, that palace, he already knows it. It's nighttime, and Jaesin is agitated, desperate to escape as he puts on those red glasses. He's very agile, but no matter how fast he runs, that tall figure in a grand historical dress with a long, hanging neck full of blood, where her head begins, could catch him. Those eyes seem to be not from here, not from this world, or at least not from our reality. Jaesin's skill is high, but not enough to match hers. She catches him, and it's the end. On the floor, immobilized by her legs and hands, he expects the worst until he notices that she has impaled a stick on the ceiling, above her. The more he looks, the more it turns blue, and gradually, it starts moving until it descends and slashes her arm. She is freed. What happened? I don't know. First, I need to escape, he thought. He gets up and starts running, dropping his glasses in the process. Finally, he reaches the door, but he realizes with melancholy and dismay that there are specters outside behind this door too. He'll have to wait for the sun to rise. The memory of So Chun appears, his superior expressing that soon he will be part of something big, and they can make use of his miserable power. She expresses her pleasure, and as she looks at the full moon, she is filled with the thought, the end is near. Returning to Jaesin's situation, he tries to make a call for help, but it's in vain. There's no signal. The reason he is in this dark and abandoned place is that he wanted to see her, to meet that lady despite being a specter. My glasses. He remembers, cautiously returning to the room where everything happened. He picks them up and notices a small glowing stone that leads him to a stick, the same stick from a few moments ago. He picks it up, but as he realizes it's an useless item, he drops it. There's an incredible explosion, but it was just a stick? He repeats the sequence several times to confirm what he just saw. I'll keep it for now. The next morning, he's on a call, asking his friend for help to move today. After convincing him, his friend agrees. Jaesin hangs up and heads out into the street. A strange man approaches him and exclaims, "Are you alive?" This stranger has a request to make, and Jay rejects it until he offers a large sum of money. Jay listens attentively. The man starts talking, mentioning that the promised Orchid Temple is located at the mountain's peak. It's abandoned, or at least it cannot be called a temple anymore, and many homeless people are disappearing because of it. The police don't care as it is going to be demolished soon. Only one person who went there survived, except for the master, and that person claimed to have seen a ghost, a woman with long hair and strange clothes. The man asks Jay to get rid of this ghost, and he leaves happily for some reason. Jaesin ponders, what should I do? That night, he couldn't sleep as thoughts overwhelmed him like a plague, not letting him breathe. He decides to at least go and check it out once. Anyway, he'll leave the next day. He goes out with his red glasses hanging from a hoodie and a stick in hand. It's dark and lonely, and as he backtracks a little, he notices two small points emitting yellow light in the darkness. someone or something is following him. He starts to pass through the same place, wondering if he's going in circles. The more he advances, the more butterflies illuminate the path with a warm color until he looks up and is surprised by a splendid brightness. It's the temple as if it were new, as if he traveled back in time. It's the same as the temple in the painting. As he approaches, the doors open, but he feels an ominous feeling and remains paralyzed. A beautiful lady is sitting on his bed, dark long hair, yellow eyes, and pale skin. She wears a white dress hugging her body, with a vibrant tunic resembling butterfly wings and shiny gold jewelry. She slowly gets up and approaches Jaesin, placing her delicate hand on his neck, getting very close to his lips. The tension builds. Her nails transform into sharp, blood-colored claws as she gets closer. His stick begins to emit a celestial aura again. Startled and somewhat disgusted, he moves away instantly. She points at him and exclaims in her anger, "What are you?" He wonders if she's here to kill him, but Jaesin doesn't know how to respond. A strange sound is heard from behind. Those yellow eyes approaching from the total darkness reappear, and her hanging head emerges from the shadows. "I will take care of her," he says decisively and without trembling. The beautiful lady is surprised that he's not here to kill her. The specter has no time to waste and rushes toward him, trying to end him, striking him relentlessly with her hanging head. The beautiful lady is very intrigued about what's happening and why. Suddenly, her hanging neck begins to shrink until it becomes a normal body. An aura of violet color surrounds her. Her hair grows and completely engulfs her, and she enlarges. With almost indifference, the lady tells the protagonist, who continues with his back turned, that it's an illusion created by the specter, and the main body is somewhere inside. He must aim for that. A short conversation starts. Jae asks if he knows how to fight, and upon hearing a negative answer, she wonders why he came there. He explains that he wants to find someone. As the specter is about to reach him, the lady warns him with a desperate scream and throws herself on top of him, her cloaks open like butterfly wings. Why do you want to meet her if you can't even fight? She doesn't understand. She strikes again, but Jaesin is faster this time. He turns around, and the lady ends up beneath him. He replies, "I was close to death, and I no longer care if I die. I want to meet her, and I realize that's all I want to do before I die. If it means giving my life, I'll do it. If that's not destiny, then what is?" The lady recalls an old memory of a bearded man but quickly returns to reality, and they become more concerned about fighting and living. The lady gets up and realizes there's no time to wait for the protagonist to find the main body. She removes the sticks from her hair, separates them, and a sword appears. She's ready to cooperate now as she found a reason to escape from there. "I'll buy you some time," she says, looking at Jaesin. He warns her about what's approaching from behind, but she's quicker. She jumps in such a way that she ends up on the ceiling. Then she throws herself at the center of the specter and pierces it, but it's not the main body. The specter quickly regenerates. And that's when the protagonist remembers, "I know where it is. In her legs. I saw it with my red glasses." As the lady distracts the specter, he tries to attack from behind. He puts on his red glasses and, just as he can locate the main body, he lunges, but the body moves upwards, indicating it has independent mobility. She cut his arm, but it was in a bad spot. While it regenerated, she got trapped with no escape. Jae reacted and saw the celestial-colored body again. He gathered momentum, and just as he was about to reach her, a head appeared, the same head as in its previous form. Jae got scared and flew away with a blow. He lost his stick, couldn't see it anywhere until he looked up. It was there, in the air with a strong celestial aura. The stick started attacking on its own, without anyone holding it. It was a conscious sword. He managed to rescue the lady and attacked the specter endlessly. Meanwhile, Jaesin noticed that the head was crying and repeating the same words, "Mr. Scholar," asking for help. He tried to stop the stick and asked it to listen and stop, but the sword-like creature didn't care and continued as if nothing was happening, dragging him around while he begged it to listen. It wouldn't listen, the sword wouldn't stop, and Jae kept shouting louder, hanging in the air, until he decided to attack the main body with his free hand. A bright light dazzled everyone. When it stopped, Jaesin, the stick, and a dog were on the ground. They were unconscious. Upon waking up, he felt a strange sensation, as if it had all been a dream. He quickly got up and asked about the monster. Then he looked down and saw the lady sitting with a dog and his stick. She seemed intrigued by the last part, and he replied that he brought it from home, trying to avoid the question. "This dog returned to its original form because you extracted your true form." Jaesin couldn't believe that all this time he had been a dog. The lady mentioned that he seemed to be a specter like a god, as she looked at a jade hairpin that was a bit broken at the end, wondering about it. The version in which the specter became larger was probably the significant effect of a vengeful spirit that took control of its power. Curious, Jay asked where the vengeful spirit was located. The lady showed him and suddenly pulled a jade hairpin from the dog's fur. She blew on the object, releasing a large cloud of smoke with little sparks, and the true identity of the specter appeared, a woman with lilac hair. She approached the lady and passed over her, leaving her with her last memory before dying. It was about the girl and a man called Mr. Scholar, standing on a cliff. She begged him not to do it, not to take her hairpin, as it had great emotional value as it belonged to her mother. He told her she didn't need it, and when she tried to defend herself by biting him, he slapped her, and she fell off the cliff, breaking her neck. Now, the lady is free, she smiles, and then disappears in a flash. According to the lady, the specter acted according to the intentions of the soul inside the hairpin. Why did you stop your sword? You could have died, she says. Jay responds that he wanted to hear her story because killing her might have been a mistake. If he doesn't consider all possibilities, he could make a mistake. The lady doesn't seem to fully agree. With a distant and out-of-herself tone, she asks, even if it's the ghost that killed your father? Jaesin remains thoughtful and silent. Suddenly, he feels a strong heartbeat inside him and clenches his hand tightly. The lady is surprised because his floating sword has reappeared, manifesting its aura once more. He apologizes because he still doesn't know how to control it and continues with his previous question, saying that having a reason doesn't mean having a justification. He only saw a woman who had already suffered a lot, and he didn't want him to experience that again, as if it were a premonition. You're strange, she adds, and your sword is even stranger. It's strange for a woman to be alone in a place like this in the dead of night, wearing peculiar clothes that people wouldn't normally wear. She comes to a conclusion and firmly says, "You're an exorcist, aren't you?" Apart from knowing where the specter's weak point was, he doesn't answer, just says, "Yes, you're strange," and offers to go together to where she lives since it's very late. As they head towards her home, they chat about whether it's a safe place or not, and the lady, with the dog in her arms, feels pursued by the thought that if this is a nearby range, it won't be long before the specters of the oak tree find her. It turns out that they both came for the ghosts. Jaesin takes the opportunity to apologize for what he said earlier about listening to the specters, as he didn't consider her situation. The lady goes back to that memory where, after telling her that her useless power would finally be useful, the bearded man explains that the ceremony he came from will be part of the Golden Crown. 2 days left. She understands his standpoint and tells him it's fine. She understands why he thinks that way. They arrived at Jaesin's house, where he left the dog on the floor and thought about why its face looked so familiar. He went to get some clothes for her while still lost in thought. He felt a connection and suspected that if they were the specters of the oak tree, they would discover that she had left. Even though the ceremony was tomorrow, she couldn't leave like this. A chill ran through her from head to toe. She was paralyzed, hearing him say, "How ridiculous, I thought it was suspicious that you were so obedient and went to check." Just because she runs doesn't mean he would let her go. He spoke in the bearded man's voice and was truly angry. "So Cheon, you can't hide your ghostly aura. That means no matter where you go, you won't be able to conceal your identity." She looked at him in silence. Jay appeared with a change of clothes for her and wondered why there was an old man at the entrance, so he proceeded to grab his glasses. Before he could put them on and see clearly, Cheon shouted at him desperately to dodge, but he didn't make it in time, and a tree root emerged from the ground, heading straight for Jaesin, pushing him and sending him flying. The bearded man consoled her, saying, "I won't punish you, Cheon, because, in the end, you'll be food for the Golden Crown." Suddenly, thick roots emerged from the ground, enclosing Cheon and not stopping until there was no gap left. "Didn't I tell you? As long as I have your remains, you'll never be able to escape from me." She became despondent, thinking that her futile dream would never come true, that she was condemned. The branches were cut in an instant. Something strong must have cut them. "Are you okay?" asked the lady, and Jay responded that it was the second time he got hit in the same place. "Ouch. Tell me its weakest point." She struggled to speak, looking down. This time, it was like that. She explained that this was a different specter, not an opponent they could defeat. The bearded man understood that the human doesn't fit. There's something different, his sword. "Now I want your sword." Jay asked Mr. Exorcist if she could think of something, but she firmly judged that even with his bad skills and hers, they couldn't defeat him. It was useless. A root trapped the protagonist's leg, but before it could go further, Cheon reacted and drew her sword, cutting it quickly and preparing to fight by creating a barrier. The man was angry and offended. He asked her to escape without him. "Whether you live or not, I'm agonizing in his hands." You won't be able to handle him, but you can delay him for a day or two. Instead of stepping back, she stood by his side. Jae would stay to fight with So Cheon. She criticized his decision, but he explained that if he left and survived, he would carry the guilt. This was a better option than running away, even though he didn't want to die. The lady was attacked by the man and thrown to the ground, and the barrier wasn't enough to stop him. So Jae didn't think twice and pounced, starting to cut through all his attacks. All by time, he told the lady, just before grabbing his sword from the ground, taking the dog with him, and running away. Angry, she scolded him, "It's not time to play," and the dog kept barking, but it stopped next to a large statue. When Secheon turned around to look at it, she couldn't believe it. You are. Meanwhile, Jae was completely immobilized, unable to move the stick, and slowly running out of breath. "I leave it to you," he thought, and his sword quickly took control, heading straight for the man. But with just his hand, the man was able to stop him as if nothing. "I'd let you live if it weren't for this thing you have. Do you realize what weapon you've stolen?" He positioned a sharp branch between his eyebrows. "Think about your sins in hell." Just as his forehead began to hurt, a creature attacked him. It had bitten half of his head and started tossing him around until he finally fell to the ground. It was a celestial-colored creature, very similar to a lion, with golden jewelry in immense size. The roots that trapped Jaesin decided to release him and let him fall. After the smoke cleared, the man was visible again, furious and fed up. His body had turned into wood, made of enormous roots. The celestial-colored creature took a combat stance. Something bad was going to happen. It roared as loudly as it could, and the bearded man began to deny it. No. He ran as fast as he could, but it was in vain. His body started elongating upwards and narrowing while being covered in a celestial-colored aura. He was no longer a man. His face started deforming with the wood. Now he was a tree that was once more than that, and that's when they understood. That lion was the guardian of the place. After helping, he walked towards his statue, sat down, and finally merged with the stone. So Cheon recalled the time she was on a cliff, looking towards the tall mountains not far away, with her father. He had explained to her that behind that important mountain, there were many specters, and the village where they were situated was right in front of them, so they used to attack them. Their duty was to protect their people. They couldn't hurt them as long as they were there because they had a guardian looking after them. So Cheon looked nostalgic, a tear falling as she sat with the stone guardian, looking at the bell she had hung on its leg as a child. She set the goal to reclaim her life, to recover her remains, but the only one who knew where they were now was the newly transformed tree. So Cheon remembered Jae's words and asked for his help. She wanted to escape her unjust situation, and he agreed to help. In a brightly lit room, everything was messy and scattered. A servant was kneeling and apologizing to his superior, who was dressed in a violet suit, had short light brown hair, and yellow eyes. The superior was calm now, and the servant was informing him about So Cheon's situation. He asked if they should send specters to deal with her, but he denied it, saying, "It's better to leave her alone. That would be more beneficial for us." Now in the living room of the house, Secheon and Jae-shin were drinking water after their recent fight, and the lady wanted to discuss what she had told him before. So Cheon didn't believe that if she told our protagonist that the ghost said to reside there was her, he would help her. So, she proceeded to tell him her story, but as if it were someone else's. She mentioned that in this city, there were many specters because it was close to the other realm. The person she knew was a martial artist who protected everyone, this place, and its lands from the specters. That's why they've experienced all these accidents. But this girl is trapped like a ghost, and to be able to protect the village again, she would need to reincarnate. The first thing that needs to be done, she explained to Jae, is to find her remains. Her remains? Yes, the remains of her body. Jae thought it would be best to talk directly to the person. "Don't worry, I spoke with the person," the lady tells him. "How can I believe you? And what kind of relationship do you have that makes you ask for my help?" Jae asked, almost like an interrogation. She replied that she couldn't tell him, and if that's the case, he couldn't trust her. The lady said that with him and his stick, they could defeat the specters together. Jae didn't believe he was capable of matching her power. He didn't want to embark on this adventure since he hadn't even gotten to know the person from his dreams. It's a dangerous job, and there's no guarantee. He doesn't want to get into more trouble. So Cheon got desperate from so many attempts to convince him. She yelled in distress, "Just believe me." Jae, feeling a bit uncomfortable, responded, "Let's say I believe you because you saved my life." He still doesn't know her well enough, but she did save him. He thought about the possibility that she might be deceived. He repeated it a couple of times while she denied it irritably until she stood up and shouted with annoyance. Both were standing and shouting at each other. "It could be that you are that person, Jae," she replied aggressively. He was shocked, calmed down in silence, grabbed a glass of water, drank it, and walked away, saying, "When I wake up, this will be a dream. She climbed on top of him and didn't let him go, insisting that it was not a dream. They sat on the floor, and she explained that she was part of a group called Nanyak, Fighters of Specters. She died in the Great Spectral War, and theoretically, she was supposed to reincarnate, but since the specters took over her body, she became one of them. And when she was captive, she helped the king by bringing humans. Jay tried to tell her that this had to be a joke, but when he asked if it was a camera, he understood that it was real, neither a dream nor a joke. Finally, he replied that he couldn't do it, repeating the reasons why it wasn't convenient for him. He got up and left, but the guilt he felt made him turn back to her. "Tell me the rest of the story," he said. Surprised, she looked at him, and he added, "I need to know what I have to do." The next day, his friend was at his door with a large vehicle to help him move. He informed Jay that it wouldn't be necessary, as he would stay, at least for a while longer. As So Chun appeared at the door, his friend teased him a bit because he understood why he's staying, and left. Jaesin encountered the man who had promised him a large sum of money in exchange for getting rid of the ghost. He was delighted to see him and congratulated him on getting rid of her. He demanded the money, and the man confessed that he lied because he was desperate. Back in the house, they bought clothes for the lady as she had no other outfit apart from what she was wearing. They bought too much, and Jay was left almost penniless. While opening the boxes, they noticed that one of them was considerably heavy, so they opened it and found that So Cheon bought an urn. Agitated, he tried to grab it to return it since they didn't need it, but in the commotion, it fell to the ground and opened. From it emerged a tiny woman. They thought it was another specter. Should he kill it himself? Would it be another problem? He doubted a lot. This specter had pink hair with a braid, wearing warm white clothes with a green cape, and had a belt with a sword. So Cheon deduced that it wasn't a specter. For example, the dog was a specter now, as the guardian of the place had taken the form of the dog, accompanying them. So Cheon got lost in her thoughts about what had happened with that bearded man, until she snapped back to reality, and Jae-shin said it would be better to find her ashes as soon as possible. The tiny woman woke up and turned into a doll, but as it was useless since they had seen her as she truly was, she tried to defend herself, although she was very weak compared to them. In the city, a girl opens the door. "Dad, where were you?" This man didn't seem to be present. He didn't react to his daughter's words at all. A turquoise-haired entity in the distance above breaks a small bright bluish ball. The man falls to the ground, even paler. The entity leaves. This man no longer had a soul. He was the same whether dead or alive. After a brief scuffle, the tiny woman stops. It was quite intense. Jay suggests that they return her to her urn. He didn't want any more involvement with specters as he would end up fighting with one, and he still hadn't met the girl from his dreams. They knock on the door, and Jay answers. It was the con artist man who came to inform him about the situation with the firefox. It turns out to be a story from the town where the fox eats the soul, leaving you as an empty shell. This has been happening to some residents, so he believes there is another specter to defeat. He asked as a favor since he didn't have money to pay Jay. The only family of this girl was her father, and they took his soul. Jay hesitated but said it would be a quick look, and so he went to work. His sword shot toward the man, and so Cheon wanted to help, but as soon as she crossed the threshold, a large, bright blue drawing on the floor began to illuminate. The dog pulled her by the pants, trying to take her back. She had to stay there. He went alone to the man's house but without fear. If I don't do something, then someone like me will die alone. A reporter knocks on the door of the con artist man. He turns out to be a somewhat peculiar reporter with two different colored eyes. He asked if the man had seen a floating flame in the night, and the man enters a panic and nervously replies with a definite no. Jae-shin knocks on the girl's door, and she had already arrived. She had her glasses on, and when she entered the house, she could see him. He was a rather strange specter, with his skin sewn with leather and surrounded by a red thread that had several papers on it. After getting startled, she managed to calm down and think about what to tell her daughter. The man, scared when he saw Jay's stick, ran away while screaming. Jay calmed the girl and went out to find him. He didn't know how to help him, didn't understand the situation, or how to react. The specter jumped between roofs. How was he supposed to catch him? His sword heard that and shot directly toward him. Jay remembered what had happened before. He didn't want to make a mistake. He ordered it to stop. Surprisingly, it obeyed, and he pushed the specter to the ground, leaving him defenseless. Trying to reason with him was futile. His neck stretched quickly, and with his long mouth, he began to swallow Jae-shin. His hands turned blue with that characteristic aura, and he managed to make the specter explode. Many people began to see him and ask where he came from and why he was in that state, so agitated. With his glasses, he could see that several of them were specters, and as he started following him, he ran away. He collided with a boy who had two different colored eyes and was coming out of a house. He could see all the specters that were chasing him. They had cornered him. This boy, as if it were nothing and with complete calmness, began to kill the specters with coins held by a thread, forming a sword or whip, depending on what he wanted. Once he was done, he asked Jaesin why the parents were chasing him, and since Jae didn't understand, he proceeded to explain. They aren't humans. They are dolls sewn with leather to imitate human parts. This boy couldn't believe that a human had so much spectral aura. He suspected he might be an apprentice. He introduced himself. I'm Yeon Juka, a member of Younghwa Seon. Introduce yourself too. I'm Yang Jae-shin. I'm a novelist. He responded without being sure of the exact answer to give, surprised from head to toe by his response. He asked him to hand over the stick since it was too dangerous for an ordinary human to have it. His response was firm, no. Then you force me to take it. He disappeared and in an instant was behind Jae-shin, taking his stick, but it didn't take long for him to drop it. How can you hold something so heavy? Our protagonist picked up the sword and mentioned that it wasn't heavy. Yeon Juka suspected that something was stranger than he thought. You must be very strong, he said. He affirmed it even if it was a lie, just to scare him. Changing the subject, Jae asked if he could find the paragranths who take on human form. Yeon seemed closed off and didn't answer that question. The girl arrived, anxiously asking for her father. Jae told her that he ran away but that he would find him, trying to give her hope and a coherent answer. She started crying and feeling guilty, saying, "It's all my fault. If she hadn't fought with him and let him go, this wouldn't have happened," she said. The protagonist gave her his number and sent her home, giving her directions, and she left. How can someone who doesn't even know what a paragranth is find a person? Yeon said. I don't know. I'll have to be capable, replied Jae. They are magical dolls created by foxes. To resemble someone, they need to have a part of their body. If they resemble a family member too much, it means they have been kidnapped, Yeon explained. Continuing, it's annoying to find their location. There's only one method, finding a small flame that bewitches anyone who comes across it. I'm here because of the rumors I heard about it. There should be some connection between paragranths and firefoxes. Soon, Jae-shin remembered and headed towards where he believed the fox's flame was located. Juka yelled at him that he was a rookie and wouldn't achieve anything with that stick. It's impossible, and he would die. But Jae coldly replied that he had made a promise. The tiny woman had already woken up, and so Cheon was with her. He quickly took out 2 cannons from somewhere in his small body and prepared to attack. He sensed a strong spectral aura, but she looked human. They chatted briefly, and so Cheon told her a bit about her situation. They introduced themselves. Her name was Hongyeon, a princess of the Soyo kingdom. She was ambushed, but she didn't know exactly by whom and ended up in that urn. Jae-shin walked, and Yeon Juka followed him. He wouldn't help him, but he was observing him, keeping an eye on him. We see a place in the depths of the village where all the kidnapped people were located. A little girl with extremely pale skin, showing no emotions, and fox ears brought them food, pretending that they were a family. The missing father in the village starts crying and begging for his life out there. He just wanted to leave and stay with his daughter. The girl pulls out one of his nails to create another paragranth and send it to find her daughter so he wouldn't be sad. The father drowns in tears. So Cheon puts the tiny woman back in her urn for a second. When she opens the door, they encounter a turquoise-haired boy. I knew it. You're not a paragranth, but you're not a person either. He began speaking loudly, drawing conclusions about the house's barrier and its guardian. With a small red ball, he destabilizes the house's barrier and can sense So Cheon's aura. I knew it. You were the owner of that aura I sensed, he said sinisterly. The girl in her house was curled up, crying inconsolably in total solitude. Her father opens the door and immediately runs to hug her, but he didn't seem happy. Suddenly, his form started looking as if he were sewn with leather and surrounded by a red rope. His neck stretched, and with his long black mouth, he swallowed her. The boy started walking with a red protective field around him. The guardian tried to attack, but it was useless. It didn't break. He took out a violet sword. So Cheon drew her sword too, saying, "You shall not pass." It seemed he was looking for the little princess. The lady tried to reason with him, telling him that he couldn't pass because of the current absence of the house's owner, but he didn't have much time to wait. They began to fight. Yeon and Jae were walking. It was dark. Yeon explained, as an expert on the subject, that you can't prevent being bewitched by the firefox, as they aren't specters. In the distance, they saw a paragranth and began to chase it. It looked strange. Its stomach was bloated. Jae said it might be because it had perhaps eaten someone, but Yeon denied it, saying it was likely for transporting a person, as it didn't have digestive organs. It escaped. They couldn't see it. They ended up next to a suspicious-looking bridge, investigated it, and with a talisman, they found it. There was a door. If the talisman burned, they wouldn't be able to return. The paragranth had already reached the cell where everyone was. It spat on the daughter, and the little girl with fox ears was happy, but the father was not at all. He insulted her, and she got angry. The peregrine exploded as soon as the two boys appeared. Through his glasses, Jae could see that the little girl was a spectral fox. She quickly went straight to hit Yin in his chest, but she got burned and moved away, complaining about it. He had a talisman on his chest. It will be simpler than I thought. Stay here. He went out to chase her, and another fight began. They both fought them and tried to push the door to get all the kidnapped humans out of the cell. The girl became depressed and generated peregrines. She wanted to kill them and end everything. They started devouring the humans and grew in size. Yin tried to take charge, intending to decapitate them all to get them out from inside, but the peregrines played dirty. When they approached to attack, they positioned the humans on their heads so that they couldn't do anything. They knocked Yin down to the ground, and Jae tried to do something with his sword, but it was useless. The same thing happened. It was as if they were emotionally blackmailing him. He couldn't see their faces and kill them. Jae Shin was on the ground. There was nothing he could do. Yin took out another talisman, with which he could immobilize his opponents, but in return, he would also have to remain still. Take them all outside. But Jae had other plans. He grabbed a peregrine and started trying to provoke something with his blue aura. Sochian and the turquoise-haired boy continued to fight. The girl began to have trouble breathing. Hong Yeong then came out, not wanting Sochian to carry something she would have to face. She shot a bullet, and instantly the boy recognized her. She was from the Soyo kingdom. But he still wasn't here to take her. He couldn't believe she was hiding that from her, not something else. It wasn't the answer he wanted to hear. Jae Shin succeeded. He destroyed a peregrine, and from it came out the girl safe and sound. Yin continued fighting with the girl, just about to rip her head off. Yin defended himself and cut her with his sword, leaving both of them lying on the ground. A small bag with a shining pearl inside came out. The turquoise-haired boy answered Sochian's question. I'm looking for someone who stole a pearl. And that's how the first part of this manhwa ends. If you have reached this part of the video, let me tell you that you have been one of the few people to make it here. So comment the word monster in the comments. Remember to subscribe to not miss any videos. With that said, see you in the next video.